There he is. Welcome into another edition of the JMU Sports News Podcast. I am Bennett Conlin, joined by Jack Fitzpatrick, who looks to have a 3-notch beer up on our screen right now.
Minuteman IPA, and you know what Mondays are?
Minuteman Mondays.
Minuteman Mondays. But no, it's great to be back. I'm excited for today's podcast episode. We've been texting quite often about what we're going to talk about today, and I think this is going to be a podcast that is almost not lethargic. What's the other word?
Cathartic.
Cathartic, that's the word. We've been doing it so long.
I hope it's not too lethargic, maybe a little bit.
No, it would be cathartic for both of us. I feel like we both have things we need to get off of our chest, and today's a really good podcast to do that. But first, before we jump into anything, as always, I think Bennett has to do a little bit of a plug for one of our sponsors.
Yep, we talked every Monday, Minuteman Mondays, $3 Minuteman Pints at 3-notch, the Valley Collab, right, in Harrisonburg. Every Wednesday is game night. So if you're listening live, game night, you got $5 flagship pints. The Oktoberfest beers are here, which is exciting. They've been here for a few episodes now. So
yeah, I was going to say, I don't think, maybe I should change the copy from are here to still here.
So take advantage of those. We love their beer. We're about a month away. I don't know if you have another trip planned, but I'm at least about a month away here from getting some 3-notched in Harrisonburg.
I'm about the same as you, except I'll probably be checking out their new Richmond collab house here at the end of the month. So experiencing that, but it's also worth noting they still have Hellfest Lager and some Steins left. So you head to the Valley Collab House, get yourself a Stein, get yourself an Oktoberfest beer. And according to their Instagram, yes, it makes you cooler if you drink out of a Stein. I'm just drinking out of my handy-dandy 902 Brewing pint glass. Shout out 902 Brewing. I don't know if it's technically a competitor. They're out of New Jersey and Jersey City. Great beer if you're ever up there. But, of course, if you're in Harrisonburg, always check out 3-notched Valley Collab House. And also Bet Online. Bet Online is back. Football is back. And Bet Online remains your number one source for all of your football betting needs this season. Find the latest odds, matchup info, player news, game trends, everything you need on BetOnline. And as your continued source for all sports wagering info, BetOnline features live betting, free contests, live scores, and giveaways all season long. Always the fastest, always the easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports and events like MLB. Postseason is here. My hometown Mariners, I like the Seahawks, so of course I got to support the Mariners. I support the Kraken too. Got to keep it all a stack in one city. Tough loss yesterday, the
That was
Astros
really
walk off.
tough.
That was a tough loss. I mean, I guess it's kind of payback for what the Mariners did in the wild card game, having that like 7-run comeback. So heartbreak was bound to happen. But you can bet on MLB, MMA, tennis, boxing, even golf. Head to betonline.ag to join and receive your 100% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Not a lot of books give you 100% welcome bonuses, so check out Bet Online. Make sure to use promo code BLEAV to receive your rewards. Bet Online, where the game starts. And where this podcast is starting, Bennett, I think it's a breakdown of what happened against Arkansas State. Or do we want to talk about the fact that Dukes are ranked? I mean, maybe we shouldn't bury the lead in this one.
We can start there. They broke into the top 25, the AP top 25, which is very exciting. It's the first time in program history they've ever been there. They're the first team transitioning to the FBS to get ranked in their first transition season. So, I mean, I think that's a pretty huge milestone.
Oh, for sure.
And one that I would say, like in certain aspects, they've already kind of succeeded because they weren't, I don't know, I feel like some people picked them to win 4 games this year and they've already won 5 and they're ranked in the top 25. I think given how well they played, if they lose out, it would be disappointing. But like kind of already have hit some huge marks in terms of like a successful year one.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, on the podcast, all of our preseason podcasts, I was on here talking about how I could see a way they only won 4 games. Like this stacked up as it was going to be a tough schedule, but I mean, Dukes are 5-0 and look really good while doing it. It's a bummer they're not bowl eligible this year, but it is pretty cool that they're ranked. But I mean, being ranked isn't the goal, right?
This is something you disagree with?
Yes, I mean 100. No shade to Chase Kitty on this. He's been a podcast guest multiple times. We had a little bit of a back and forth on Twitter about it. I get what he's saying, that for a program, just getting to the top 25 isn't the goal. It's everything else that comes with it. But he just had a funny line in one of his articles, which I highly recommend you read because overall it was a fantastic article. There was just one really funny line where he put in there, Dukes don't want to be ranked. And I was like, I think they do. I think JMU definitely wants to be ranked. His overall point was there needs to be more that comes out of it. They need to keep pushing, blah, 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 all that stuff. But just putting Dukes don't want to be ranked, I was like, I think they do. I think every JMU alumni, every JMU casual fan, JMU football player, coach, administration, everything, I think they wanted to be ranked, and I think this is going to help immensely with future recruiting. And I think when Kurt Cignetti says, hey, look, we're going to compete in the college football playoff when it gets to 12 teams, we're going to compete for that, and we're going to be in the running, I think this just goes to show that he's not wrong. Like, they're going to compete quickly.
Yeah, I think so. Chase does those like weekly takeaways over at Hero, right? So after every game, he's got the takeaways. And I guess the subtle difference he was pointing out is there's a difference between wanting to play excellent football being the goal, and then being ranked is sort of the, I guess, the reward for playing excellent football. It's sort of a sign that you're in the right direction, but not necessarily a goal.
Yeah.
I do think it's probably in Kurt Cignetti's contract, though. So, I mean, like, I think there are some aspects of it of like, yeah, it is a goal because he definitely got opponents for this.
I also think it's two-pronged. We were texting about it. I think being ranked, it means you have to be playing really good football. And like that then brings it's not independent of each other. These two things are very codependent, where if you are ranked, it means you're playing really good football. And if you play really good football, it means you're going to be ranked.
Right. You can play good football without being ranked, and you can be a big brand name that gets ranked, and maybe you're not playing as well.
Texas.
But for the most part, if you're in the top 25, you're probably pretty good, especially from the G5. So I think it's one that I think actually means more than just like, wow, this is really cool for fans. It's the kind of thing that like gets some national attention, which matters, right? If they expand to 12, like a lot of that is going to be perception, because you just need to be the highest ranked, like non-power 5. That's sort of the system they have like proposed, right? Is the group of 5, the highest ranked group of 5 champion, I believe, or they might do it where it's the top 6 conferences. So the highest ranked conference champion from 6 conferences. So you would group of 5 would be one of those, would get a spot in the college football playoff. So I think obviously the playoff committee isn't the AP top 25, but like being in that is certainly helpful.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Do you think JMU is ranked if it wasn't for all the national media attention that came from week 1 to not 3 because they didn't play, the upset against App State? Like, do you think this narrative has helped JMU become ranked? Because Coastal, they're 6-0 and they're not ranked. And there's no talk around them. Also, they're not good, but they're 6-0.
I think that helps. I think the narrative helps with JMU getting ranked for sure. Like that's part of what it is, right? Is some of it is you have like beat reporters. Like I used to be a voter and I was a beat nerd. And I was when I was
sending that back at me.
When I was voting, I wasn't watching every team play. I wrote a little article about that where I had some like inside baseball stuff about the AP top 25. But like if I was covering a road game at Louisville on the UVA beat, you would like get to the stadium. If it's 3:30 kick, you'd get to the stadium a couple hours before, so you can't really watch much of the noon games. The 3:30 game, you're only watching UVA unless you're like really messing around and watching other games on your laptop while following that one. And then the night games, you're probably working on like stories and stuff. So you're not actually watching a lot of football outside of the team that you cover, which I think is worth noting. So a lot of this is narrative, yeah, and seeing what other voters are doing and not wanting to be a dummy and get roasted on Twitter. And if you see a bunch of other people have them at 25, it's like, well, maybe I'll stick them at 25. There's a little bit of groupthink involved there that I think the AP poll doesn't want you to believe there is, where it's like, we're historic and we're amazing. It's like, kind of, but you've also got like people who are just tired submitting a ballot because no one's paying them to submit a ballot. So yeah, I think narrative played a role, but I also think Coastals look wildly unimpressive and JMU's look really good in the 5 wins too.
So, talking about JMU looking good, they looked really solid for 3 quarters against Arkansas State. They looked kind of shaky in quarter 1. And I think this game is a major reason JMU is ranked. I mean, you go on the road to a hostile environment that everyone knows really, really well in Jonesboro, Arkansas. They have a waterfall. They have 5 fans in the stands. And they beat them down pretty well, 42-20, and it's not even as close as that 22 points like indicates. Arkansas State never really had anything going. Their offense looked bad. Their defense really couldn't. I mean, had a couple good drives here and there, but overall JMU looked dominant. And this game was a big reason they jump into the top 25. You go on the road and you see them win by 22 points in a nationally televised game. What were some of your takeaways against the Red Wolves here? And yeah.
Yeah, so this wasn't quite a full viewing experience for me in terms of a quality rewatch. Brother's wedding was on Saturday, so I did follow this game. And I
have a question.
Yeah.
Can I talk to your brother really quick? Who does a Saturday wedding in college football season?
It was so nice, though.
Okay, valid.
It was in Virginia with the fall foliage in Stanton, Virginia, and man, like I'm with you on like, oh no, a college football Saturday, and then you get out there and you see all the trees, and you're like, all right, I get it. But it was,
wow.
It was a fun time, and I did have a chance to follow the game a little. I've watched some things. I think the number one takeaway there are some like negative takeaways that I think are probably worth addressing. I think like the kicking.
We have a segment for that.
The slow starts are a little bit of a concern, but for me, it was just like they were way better than them, and they showed that, as through the course of 4 quarters. And Centeio was awesome. He threw for like 400 yards, basically 4 touchdowns. Thought he was fantastic. And then the fact that they can like alternate running backs every week on who has the big game. Percy was really physical in this game. Like he's got a great burst, but he was finishing runs like Palmer does, where he just was running over guys. I mean, he was like chipping people's helmets off. So he had some phenomenal runs. So I think for me, the offense was the big takeaway, although it's just sort of another week where the defensive line and linebackers kind of went off again.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm glad you brought up Percy because he was injured the last 2 weeks. He didn't play against App State. He had minimal carries in the following week against Texas State. And then got a huge workload against Arkansas State. Carried it 21 times, 158 yards, averaging 7.5 yards per carry. And I think that's the most explosive and most dangerous I've seen Percy in well over a year and well over a season. He seemed to be able to hit the hole. He played with great vision and he played with great speed while playing under control. And I know that's every cliche you can say about a running back, but he really played exactly how you want a lead feature back to play. Latrell Palmer got it 13 times. He only rushed for 34 yards, so not the best performance from Latrell Palmer, but he was more so the bruising back in that situation. It is interesting, though, no Kalon Black again. We didn't see him. I think we saw him maybe 2 carries against Texas State, something very, very minimal. And then we didn't see him at all against Arkansas State. I haven't seen him come up on any injury reports. He's still listed on the 2 deep. So I'm really not sure where Kalon Black is. I'm not sure if he kind of is a break in a case of emergency type of situation like Percy was against Texas State. But that'll be something to monitor as we move forward.
I don't think they are listening, but if anyone on the beat is listening, it would be super helpful if there was just like an injury question every week. Like I don't mean that like to be mean, but it's just like I remember when I was on the Virginia beat and I was not doing that at first because I was focused on like big picture things, which I think is very easy to do with this JMU season. But like it would be super helpful to know like what's up with Kamara on the defensive line. I think Chroma didn't travel either, or at least they were out of that game. So those kind of injury updates would be super nice.
Yeah, for sure. Any other takeaways kind of from a play-by-play inside the numbers, inside baseball kind of takeaway from this game? And then from there, we can extrapolate that out to our really negative segment that we have coming up and our really positive segment.
I was surprised by who caught the 4 touchdown passes. It was Horton, Painter, Van Horst, Ravenel. If you had told me like there are 4 touchdown passes thrown, all to 4 different people, and one of them is not Chris Thornton, who had 9 catches for 173 yards, I think I would have been surprised by that. But huge game for the tight ends because they were doing some RPO stuff, I guess, and they were really keying in on the run and left the tight ends kind of wide open a couple times, and they had some nice catches. Van Horst seems like he's going to be out for a long time, potentially this season. Suffered an injury in the game.
I didn't even see him get injured.
I'm so bummed about that because he was coming on so strong. You know how much at least me, have plugged him over the years.
Since his freshman West Virginia appearance, every year, every offseason, you'd say, I want to see Van Horst be used as a receiving back out of the backfield or put him in the slot. He steps into this game, 5 receptions, 40 yards, and a touchdown. Looks like he's explosive out of the backfield in terms of receiving the ball, and then boom, he's done.
So he's played 15 games since the start of last season. He has 39 catches for over 400 yards and 6 touchdowns. I feel like we never talk about him. It's just like he's so productive when he's out there. So to not have him stinks because he was banged up at the beginning of the year. And then it was like, oh, they got him back. This is great. And that's tough for him. So hopefully he can get healthy eventually and contribute a little more because he's pretty good when he's out there.
He's very good, and he's a fan. We talk all the time about the change of pace backs between Percy, Latrell, and Kalon, but Van Horst was right in there with them. Yeah. He may not have been that change of pace handed off back, but when Van Horst was in, you knew he was about to do something out of the backfield that was special. I mean, that wheel route touchdown to him was a thing of beauty.
He's so good, so productive. So that one's tough. The other stat that kind of stood out a lot was I feel like we've been talking a lot about Jalen Walker.
I mean, for good reason. He's
probably
the best. Real quick, I need to go on a quick Jalen Walker thing. Jalen Walker may be the best defensive player I've seen at JMU in my time. And we've seen people like Andrew Ankra,
Jimmy
Wayne
Moreland.
Davis, Jimmy Moreland, Rashad Robinson. I'm trying to think of what was number 0?
Tucker Dorsey.
There's Tucker Dorsey. I'm thinking of an edge guy. John Daka. Daka was a monster. Like all of these guys were absolute studs. And now Jalen Walker, a sophomore, 31 tackles this season, 2 interceptions, 3 pass breakups, 3 quarterback hits, a sack, 2 TFLs, and is seemingly all over the place on every single play. Like when you run the type of defense JMU runs, that 4-2-5, your linebackers have to do so much sideline to sideline to make up for the fact that you're only running two linebackers. You have that rover, but the rover doesn't necessarily do what the linebacker does. And Walker has just been absolutely amazing. So many big-time plays from him. I mean, he's a big reason they won the App State game, a pick 6 this season. And pair that with Taurus Jones, this linebacking duo is so good. But Jalen Walker is the heartbeat of that defense, and he's awesome.
He's phenomenal. And that's what I was just going to say about Jones is like, hello, 13 tackles, 2.5 tackles for a lot. Like, way to have a game that's like, don't forget about me. He's got 4.5 tackles for loss in the last 2 games. He's been absolutely fantastic. So to have those guys plus the defensive line that they have is pretty special. And I think it makes life significantly easier for the secondary.
Yes, before we get into the that was the perfect setup, and I thank you so much for that. However, I have to shout out Isaac Ukwu as well.
Yes.
Because he went down with an injury in the first, I think it was the first drive of the game. He wasn't happy about it post-game. I don't know if you
his
heard
comments were awesome. Yes.
And I mean, he raises a good point. Don't block low if you're a tight end just because you can't block me was essentially what he was saying. He gets injured on that play. I imagine shakes up his knee, something gets twisted, goes off, goes under the medical tent, probably gets taped up. And then he comes back out and has 6 tackles, 2.5 TFLs, 2 sacks, and a forced fumble. Like,
best game of the year for him.
Like he missed. It was just an insane game for Ukwu, and he just deserves to get a shout out for that too.
The defensive line is just so good.
And I'm so glad you brought up the defensive line. Do you want to move into our negative segment now?
We can do our negatives, yeah.
All right, we'll go into our negatives.
Our Dukes have no hope segment. Talking about the negatives. They've played so well this year, but they haven't been perfect. And I think there are probably some, maybe 2 major areas for concern. If you could say 3 if you want to have slow starts, but the secondary is one people are still a little concerned about, and I think that's fair. They had some growing pains in this game, I would say.
Yep.
So there's some concerns there, and then the kicking game was also a concern.
Yeah, big time.
I was unable to watch the field goals. I have not seen video footage of the field goals.
So one of them was kind of long.
45 was what it was listed as, but I was told it was into the wind.
Sure.
By cursing that.
It came up short by like 2 yards.
But it was in the middle.
It would have made it if he had the distance, but he didn't have the distance. I'll chalk that one up as it's a long one. It's tough. Okay, if you miss that and go 1 for 2 on the night, I'm not upset. But then he missed another chip shot and just missed it.
32 yards.
And I'm not here to call for anyone's job. I'm not here. This is college football. I understand there's bigger things. But when you have Madden on the roster too, another potential kicker, I think Camden Wise is 2 for 5 now on the season.
2 for 6.
He's 2 for 6 on the season. And I know we were spoiled with Ethan Radke, who's arguably the best college kicker in terms of like accuracy ever. I know you're taking a step, but when you take a step from that to a 33% field goal kicker in games that I know will be closer as we move on through the season, that are more pressure-packed kicks. Look, I get it's all a mental game. I get kicking is tough. I get I wouldn't be able to hit a 45-yarder. I wouldn't even be able to hit a 32-yarder. But I got some questions.
I'm all in on Wise.
Why?
I think he's got to be the guy because he's obviously struggled, but they haven't, in the end, they haven't mattered. They haven't cost them at least. So that's a positive. Signetti, multiple occasions, has been like, he's the guy. I told him he's going to make some big kicks for us this year. It's fine. He's the guy.
Cool. He can say all he wants. I mean, I think
that tells me, though, that he's the best kicker on the roster based on practices.
Okay. Yes, but does that not worry you that the person who's
No,
kicking 33% on the year is the best kicker
no,
on the
because
roster?
no, we went like 5 years with like the greatest kicker, and
That doesn't make
this is what
that
college
doesn't make
kickers
up
are.
this year.
This is what
No, no, no,
college
no.
kickers are.
No,
This is
college
what it's
kickers are
gonna.
like 80%,
No,
75%.
80%. No, they're not.
75%.
No,
They're not
no.
under 50%.
No, they're not under 50, but college kickers are highly. So here, let me get. What do you think Tyler Gray's career field goal percentage?
75%.
He was 69.
Nice.
He was 69%. He never hit anything over 50. I'm pretty sure.
I don't need my college kicker to kick over 50. I just need my college kicker to not kick 33%.
I think, though, he was like, when he made that kick that was like 45 yards.
That was his career long at the time, I think.
Yeah, I think he was like 0 for 7 going into that on kicks over 40 yards.
And I don't made it again.
Houston acted like it's the first time he's ever seen him make a field goal. Like I'm going
to be honest with you though. I don't care about over. I get it's tough to. He's 0 for 2 on 27 yards or in. No, 1 of 3.
I just think that he's going to figure it out. I
hope so.
He's only had 6 kicks, and everyone's like freaking out, and they're like, "Oh, he's
if he was 3 for 6, I wouldn't care. That's the
thing.
If
he had made 1, that's ridiculous.
If he had made one, if he went 1 of 2 against Arkansas State, I wouldn't care because you haven't seen the video footage of the 32-yarder.
It was way left.
He hooked it. It never had a shot.
It was the right hash and it was left, right?
Yes.
Because Signetti was saying his worst hash is the right hash. That's the one that's harder for him. So just put him in the left hash, boys. Take a third down play. Centeio's got to take a sack on the left hash. All right, and let's try. I think he makes a few and redeems himself. I would say that. I know he's not kicking well, but I do think he redeems himself, and I like that Signetti has said, "Hey, he's our guy."
All right.
But it's also fair to say that 2 of 6 for the rest of the season is obviously not gonna cut it, right? If you're missing 32 yarders, and I think
it's weird though. He's perfect on extra points.
I mean, that's pretty hard to miss, but yeah,
well, I know, but like
they don't even they don't look bad. Like they all look pretty. Right?
Yeah. He doesn't have the yips or anything. That's the like if he had the yips, I'd get him missing some extra points or like shanking him or doing something weird. But he's perfect on extra points.
He's also the other one. The one of the misses was blocked, so we don't know if that was going in or not. But I don't remember.
Partly on the kicker's fault.
I don't remember if it was too low or if
it was low. It was a further kick, so it was a low trajectory.
Okay. Well, I just want to see a little more. I want to keep giving him his chances.
All right.
But I think on the flip side, I like aggressive Signetti, and I think like maybe not automatic field goals from 35 yards plus leads to more aggressive Signetti. I think in the end it actually could be really good. If he makes kicks from inside of 30 yards at like 75% the rest of the way, fine.
I'll agree with that.
But it's definitely something worth monitoring now. But I'm not going to bail on him yet because he's only had 6 kicks. Like, I don't know. It just feels like such a small sample size and this is a horrible comparison, but like, I feel like our first quarters with like Todd Centeio at quarterback, he's missed like a lot of reads and throws. And like throughout later in the game, he becomes like legitimately the best quarterback in the Sun Belt.
Yeah.
I'm not saying why he's the best kicker in the Sun Belt. I'm just saying
this is his first quarter.
It would be pretty hard to go like 31 games sitting on the sideline, knowing you're not going to have to kick. And then now going on a ranked team and being like no pressure, but here's your first few field goals. You know, like I feel like Radke had some time to be like, hey, we're up 60 on people in games that really don't matter as much. I just feel like there's a little more pressure, and I think it's going to take him some time to get used to being comfortable in a game.
Guess the wind in the stadium on game day.
Signetti said into the wind, and it seemed like something that didn't sound genuine, so I'm going to say like 3 miles an hour.
It was 5.
Yeah. I don't think it was like a wind thing. But I mean, it's not like Radke had a lot of distance, even though everyone did like stories on how Radke added distance after college without any way to verify that he in fact had it. Like they didn't let him kick a 50-yarder against Sam Houston, right? They had Madden come in.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
And also a place to worry for these Dukes that I think can get exposed this weekend is this secondary. This secondary scares me. I had hope for a little bit when I was like, oh, it's just Brett Austin. Like, okay, they can just pick on one guy, but Chauncey Logan is just locking down the other side. Good for him. He's having himself a time over there. Arkansas State picked on Logan and got some catches, and I think got a pretty bad touchdown where Logan passed him off to, I think it was Q Reed at safety or whoever was playing the safety on his side. And it was just a complete breakdown in coverage, and Logan just didn't look like he knew what was going on, which is to be expected out of a freshman. Both of our starting corners are true freshmen, so in theory they're going to get better every game, but you also are going to expect bad plays like that. But this secondary does worry me. If this defensive line doesn't get home in under 2 seconds and the opposing quarterback has time in the pocket, they can get got. And they got against Arkansas State a few times. And it really worries me.
They can get got. The good news is some of the Sun Belt teams have like atrocious defenses. Like atrocious. Georgia Southern is one of those teams. They sling it around a lot. But the other thing that's kind of fascinating going back to the secondary is Kyle Van Treese I think he has 13 touchdown passes.
11 picks.
11 picks. That's a lot of interceptions. He threw 4 last week against Georgia State. That's a lot. So they're going to have chances. And like I've seen some Georgia Southern fans on Twitter who are like, yeah, you're going to have like 5 passes that are interceptable. It's just a matter of if the corner intercepts it or not. But like he's going to throw passes that probably should be intercepted. So I think that's going to be something to monitor is when they have those chances, can they reel the ball in and things like that. I mean, I think a theory a lot of people have floated out there is that Chauncey Logan gave up some long ones on purpose because he wants to see Georgia Southern challenge him so he can get a few picks, get his Heisman campaign for next year started early. And I think that might be the case. I think there's a good chance that's what happened. So something to consider.
I do think Chauncey Logan is a good corner. I just think the fact that him and Austin, excuse me, are both true freshmen, like it worries me that they're going to have opportunities to show their greenness, show their rookiness. This week, Jordan Swan gets to start at CB1, Chauncey Logan at CB2, Xavier Cockley, backup, Brent Austin, backup.
They got that dog in them, though. They're going to show it. Should I do my other? What was my other rant? I have the game day rant.
Oh, we want to go right into that? Okay.
That's still negative. I thought I had another negative one, too, and I can't even remember now.
I think you were just mad.
It's the bowl game. It's the bowl game stuff.
Okay, I'll give you your rant. Here's the floor. I'm handing you the floor, handing you box 1. Take over this game day or no game day, and if you want to take this into bowl games, you can do that. Okay. I mean, we are only 1 game away from being bowl eligible.
This is true. I just don't think they're going to get college game day for the Marshall game, the homecoming game. And I saw a little steam building up that, hey, maybe they're going to get it. Maybe they're going to get it. It's like you got UCLA, Oregon, which is at worst a top 15 matchup. UCLA right now, I'm looking at it, they're 6-0. Oregon's hosting, they're 5-1. I know they got blown out by Georgia, but Chip Kelly returning to Eugene for a huge Pac-12 game seems like a pretty good storyline. They could go back to Clemson. Clemson's kind of a fun one if Syracuse beats NC State, and they are favored by a few points, although Clemson's going to lose to Florida State this weekend, so that'll be ruined. What else we got there? Oh, Texas.
Bold.
It is bold, but it's Florida State's. It's only a 3.5-point dog. That feels fishy to me. But Texas is going to play at Oklahoma State. I want to say Texas has a game they should win, which is against Iowa State at home. They probably should with Ewers back. Oklahoma State.
Give me Hunter Deckers and Xavier.
And who?
Xavier Hutchinson.
Okay. But you've got TCU and Oklahoma State play each other this weekend. So one of those teams is very much going to be in the top 10 and 6-0 and probably the best shot in the Big 12 to make the college football playoff. Oklahoma State would host Texas in a huge game. TCU would host Kansas State in a huge game. That's a night game. You got the 3:30 game for Oklahoma State, Texas. I just have a really hard time seeing, like, objectively speaking, Marshall JMU is not the game you go to. If you have like those options, which is like at least one really good Big 12 matchup and then a phenomenal Pac 12 matchup. And I know some people saying they don't go to the West Coast much, which is true because the 6 a.m. out there would be when the show starts, which isn't great. But like Oklahoma State, Texas, or TCU, Kansas State is objectively more interesting than JMU Marshall.
Even if there were like not as great games, like that day is shaping up to be a fantastic day in college football, right? Like
right.
A lot of fantastic games. Even if it wasn't, I still think JMU Marshall has a long shot at ever getting on the game day radar, because I think when you're an FCS school, that almost gives you an edge on a bad college football weekend because you can go to an FCS school. You can hype up that it's a ranked matchup. Like when we had it the first time against Richmond, it was the only ranked matchup in college football, in Division I college football. Like, it just adds a little bit of an oddity to it. It adds something weird. It's a bunch of kids who've never had it before. Like, it's an additional storyline that they can run with. But now that JMU's FBS, yeah, we've had it a few times, but that almost hurts our case now when they're like, what is a weird game on an okay college football Saturday? I don't think Marshall JMU really even gets a look, even if it's an okay day of college football.
And I had kind of said in the past that it was like, hey, the opponent doesn't matter as much, especially at the FCS level. Probably in this case was wrong on that front when I wrote about that. I think like if Marshall had stayed 6-0 as ranked and it's a ranked matchup,
yeah,
and it's like Marshall could be in the New Year's Six Bowl and JMU could be, they're obviously they have the fun storyline of not in a bowl, but they have the fun storyline right of they're transitioning up, and you can talk about how maybe the rules outdated or like there's some storylines there that are interesting. I just like I don't think if you're the only way you can think that it's going to JMU, I think, is if you're a JMU fan. Like it doesn't. To me, it's not like the story of the week. It's not like the novelty is pretty much gone because they've been to Harrisonburg twice. Like it just seems less of a like you would need a pretty bad weekend, and you might even need more than I was admitting in the past of like opponent being good type of credit. I've also seen a lot of people saying, "Oh, well, game day will come for undefeated JMU hosting undefeated Coastal." Coastal's not going to be undefeated by that point. I don't know if JMU is. It's like rivalry weekend, like Michigan, Ohio State, and all these unbelievable games. Alabama, Auburn. Like,
they're not coming.
No. It's like the students will be at home. Like, stop it. I don't really think they have any chance of getting game day, which is I know is like a very sad rain on a parade take. I don't think it's realistic. I was maybe surprised there was still push given how good the slate seems like will actually be now.
I also want to say this. I think JMU fans shouldn't get so wrapped up in game day. Like, they shouldn't care about game day coming, and I know it's so much free exposure, it's this, that, and the other, and it's fun. Don't get me wrong, it's fun, and I think every college student should experience game day because
twice.
Me getting it twice as a – did you get it? Were you there for both years?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, my junior year. Yeah, freshman, junior for me. But, like, being able to experience it is awesome. But Lawrence, Kansas just got it for the first time in the school's history. And they were undefeated back in 2009 and had a really good team. And, like, there's so many other FBS schools that have never had it. Like, it's hard to get game day. JMU fans shouldn't wrap up everything in, we want game day. This game has the potential to have game day. Let's circle it. Let's talk about it. Let's hype it up. Let's at Lee Fitting, which I don't even think is a producer on the show anymore. Let's do this. Let's do that. Just let it be. Like, let it come if it comes. Don't get so emotionally invested in game day coming.
And that's my take on it. That's a fair take. I love game day. I love the intrigue. I love the week by week debating, but it's fair. And I think it's also fair now that it feels like each week means more like on the field where it's like homecoming is going to be sweet. Like regardless of whether they stick, Lee Corso and company on the quad, like it's going to be really cool. We're in the past where it's like, hey, we're probably going to blow out Villanova. Like it'd be cool if we had the show, like a little something else to kind of headline the day. Now I think the games are good enough and meaningful enough that it's like, if they come, very cool. And if they don't, that's fine. And my other hot take, love the game day came, really fun as a student. Game day sucks in person. Like game.
Yeah, it's probably it's so much fun leading up to it. Game day, terrible.
You can barely hear the audio.
You can't. No, you can't. It's not barely. You don't know what's happening on the show. Like they played the Trey Sharp, like the father, his father passing away, like a beautifully. I had to go back to my dorm room and watch it because I couldn't hear it because everyone's talking. Yeah. I was like, guys, this is important.
Yeah, it's not like an ideal in-person viewing experience. It's really cool, and like I'm sure the school loves it for the press, and I think it's fun. I like it more now, almost not being there, of being able to like watch it on TV. It's almost like more exciting if they get it. But I don't think it's happening, which I don't think matters or dampens the season at all. Like I don't know. I don't think it's that important.
Let's just say this: JMU sold out homecoming, or at least sold out homecoming, but the student tickets were sold out in 45 minutes. They don't need game day for additional hype.
Yes, we got the buzz.
This program has the hype. Do we want to go into our positive stuff right now, or do we want to go into listener questions?
Let me yell about a bowl game really fast.
Oh, wait, bowl game. And also you have to yell about UVA and Tech fans.
Oh, yeah, UVA and Tech fans, which I thought was funny because there were UVA and Tech fans, whether it was message boards or just on Twitter.
I saw it everywhere. In the replies to I think it was PFN, Pro Football Network or whatever. Yeah. They tweeted JMU gets 25th. All the comments. They haven't even played a tough schedule. They don't even deserve to be ranked. Todd Centeo's not even that good. Blah, this, that. And then you're like, I adore UVA and Tech fans saying that we haven't played it. And like, you just hit them with the facts.
Their strength of record is horrible. And people are like, well, those are different metrics. It's like, I know. I would rather have a good strength of record metric than a strength of schedule metric, you dweebs. But I thought that was annoying. And then the Tech fans were like, well, I didn't say anything. So I didn't. That
was my Tech and UVA fans. Well, I didn't say anything, so it must not have happened. Yes, you are the moral compass for all Virginia Tech fans, which we know are large. That's a large group in Virginia, spanning the tip of it all the way to the other tip of it.
There was definitely some haters with JMU's ranking. That's all I would say. Not everyone. There were some Tech and UVA fans who were very nice. And
I think it's really awesome what JMU's doing, and I hope you guys keep it up, which was also the most condescending way.
It was, some of it was pretty condescending, where it's like, it's pretty cute, the story you've got going. It's like, okay, we'll see you on September 9th, and we'll beat you by 100 next year. But, I thought that was interesting. That was little like, how could you... I didn't say anything. It's like you've been saying things for many, many years before this too. About
but now we suck and you guys are good. So good job.
I like some of the cell phones were pretty good too. Where it's like I'm so worried about how bad Tech is that I can't even think about JMU. I spend all my time thinking about how much we suck. Congratulations, on spending your Saturdays watching a horrible football team. That was interesting. But the bowl game stuff with JMU. So they talked to Jeff Bourne. Jeff Bourne had a media availability this week, which was, I thought, interesting. Mostly just like, hey, let's pound the fact that we're 5-0 and ranked and get as much press as possible by having the athletic director available for 30 minutes. Pretty cool. But he talked to everybody, and they talked about like bowl game waivers. And the way I read his comments or heard his comments was, if they're in contention to get the like New Year's 6 Cotton Bowl bid, they would ponder a waiver. But he's not putting out a waiver if they're like 7-4, right? He's not trying to play in like the Frisco Bowl. They've done that. They've done the Frisco trip. They don't need to do it again. So it would have to be like the New Year's 6 Bowl. And I think he wants to wait, I would say, at minimum until they beat Louisville and are like, whatever, they would be 8-0 at that point. And then I think they would consider it. But I also don't think they're going to get the waiver. Like, everyone's like, oh, this rule sucks. And it does kind of suck. But the idea that they're just going to like, give them a waiver because they're good doesn't make any sense. Like, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Oh, and the other thing that I thought was interesting is there were the idea, because Shane Maitland had reported this, that the Sun Belt would be on board potentially to lobby for the waiver, which, like, if they're the only Sun Belt team in contention to play in the New Year's Six Bowl, that makes sense, right? That all checks out to me. And the other one was that ESPN might do it. Like, ESPN could lobby for him. ESPN also has the American Athletic Conference. If Cincinnati is the highest ranked group of 5, or it's like competitive with JMU, there are a few rankings below and they would get it instead. ESPN's not going to go to the NCAA and be like, actually, we'd like JMU 14th to get in over Cincinnati, who is 17. No, like if it's Conference USA or someone who they don't at Mountain West, who they don't have the rights to, but if it's an American Athletic Conference or another Sunbelt team, which seems most likely the American's the best group of 5 conference, why in the world would ESPN be like, we're just JMU people, we just love the Dukes? Like, that's not going to happen. Doesn't make any sense.
I love it.
So I don't think they're going to a bowl game. That's my point, is enjoy the 11 games, because I don't think they're getting a waiver.
Well, do you want to talk about something happy really quick?
Yeah, this is a really negative podcast.
I'll start with the Dukes have all the hope here. We're going undefeated. Like, they are going to be 11-0. We have the best quarterback in the Sun Belt. Louisville is going to be stinking up the joint when we play them. They have 2 games before us. There's a good chance they're 3-3 right now. There's a good chance they're 3-5 when we play them with a new coach, and or when we beat them, they then fire their coach because we beat them.
This is possible.
So, and I think we're favored against Georgia Southern. We're going to be favored against Marshall. It's going to be a close line against
I think so too.
We're going to be favored at ODU. We're going to be favored against Georgia State. And we're going to be favored against Coastal. Like, I think there's a possibility if we blow out Georgia Southern and Marshall, we're favored against Louisville.
I hope we're favored against Louisville. If we're the ranked team and we're the underdog, that always are ones when I like to bet against it. So that would be scary there. I think they do have a chance to be favored every game the rest of the way. It feels like so if they go 3-3, they're 8-3. Like, so that would be a pretty average finish, and they'd still have 8 wins. It feels like 9-2.
9-2 to me is the floor, and I think 11-0 is what's like. Maybe I've drank too much purple Kool-Aid here, but I really think 11-0 is the secondary. Yeah, it leaves a lot to be desired, but the defensive line is so good, and I'm looking at these upcoming teams. Marshall and Coastal are the only offensive lines. Even Louisville has such a bad defense. I think we can go blow for blow with them. Like,
we're just as good, if not better, than Louisville. Yeah.
And going into the season, that was the one where I was like, we're going to get boat raced at Louisville. But then Louisville hasn't shown much. Malik Cunningham isn't good this year. I don't know what happened to him. He was a first-round draft prospect.
He's got no help.
Well, he hasn't even eclipsed 1,000 yards.
He's not been good passing, had a couple of fun running games, and then he's been concussed. So he missed the last game, and their backup, they torched UVA, which is like saying that you torched like a high school team. So that wasn't that impressive. And they have a bye before that. Like, the fact that they had a bye going into App State and then a bye going into Louisville.
Like, this team has one of the best quarterbacks in the country. They have one of the best running back rooms. This wide receiving core is blowing me away. Their tight ends are playing damn near lights out, and the offensive line is really, really good. Pair that with the fact that this is a historically great defense. Yeah, we don't have to focus on the fact that some of their numbers are being bolstered by sacks and other stuff like that. It's a really good defense regardless. 2 of the best linebackers, I would say, in the Sun Belt. Defensive line is great. Secondary, but I mean, overall, I see us winning the rest of our games. I think we're 11-0.
I think the all Sun Belt team should just be JMU's 2 deep.
I agree. That's what I've been saying.
And we're way better than Coastal. Coastal's trash.
Yeah, I can't wait for Coastal week, and they're somehow still undefeated.
They're going to have like 4 losses by then. They're terrible.
I'm hoping they're undefeated, and then they come into Bridgeforth, and we blow them out by like 40.
I will say, if JMU, on the positive front, if JMU is 11-0 in the highest ranked group of 5 team, I'm going to be obnoxious about them deserving a waiver. I don't think they're getting the waiver. Like, realistic me is like, nope, there's no waiver. We get 11 games. But I'll be very annoying about it. I'll be claiming national championships. I'll be doing a lot of things if they go 11-0.
Remember how 3 weeks ago, after the App State game, I was the one on here telling you how this team was actually that great and this, that, and the other? Man, how the tables have turned. That's all.
How the tables have turned. They just look so like they're not even starting well. But there's also, like, when I'm paying attention to the game and it's like they're trail 3-0 in the second quarter, I'm never like, oh no. I'm always like, it's fine. And they outgain them by like 300 yards.
Did they trail in this game?
They trailed 3-0.
Oh yeah, they did.
And then they just bodied them. Even then, it was like kind of close late, and they were like, what if we just scored 2 more touchdowns?
Yeah, it was 28-20. And then all of a sudden, In the fourth quarter, Percy had the 31-yard kick, and then Drew Painter had the 28-yard touchdown. Yeah, that's right.
It's just they're playing so well. And we talked about it. The Sun Belt is like it's good, but Georgia Southern's defense is horrible. They have a quarterback who's interception prone. Marshall's offense doesn't do anything. Like they don't do anything ever.
Neither does ODU's offense.
ODU's offense.
And Georgia State is one of the worst teams in the country. And Coastal's a fraud. Like looking at this Sun Belt record, like the rest of the Sun Belt coming up are all extremely winnable games. And then you're at Louisville. The toughest part about at Louisville is having to fly into Kentucky. Other than that, that game's a cakewalk.
And they got a beautiful airport filled with bourbon. Maybe they go there and buy. Maybe they go there and pound some bourbons during the bye week. Spend a couple weeks in Louisville.
Well, do you want to break down Georgia State, or do you want to answer some
Georgia Southern?
Did I say state?
Probably because they beat them, so they run the state now, including the University of Georgia.
Sorry, that I forgot that's how the rule works. Do you want to break down Georgia Southern real quick? Do a little get to know you, or do you want to do some quick questions from our listeners?
That's a good question.
We'll go Georgia Southern and then
questions. Sounds good.
All right. Sounds lit. Are you ready for it?
Go for it.
Well, Georgia Southern. Let me pull up some stuff. That's not the right music for it.
It's kind of romantic.
Nope, no music for this. All right. It's time for the three-notched preview. Georgia Southern comes into this one 3-3, 0-2 in Sun Belt play, coming off of a loss against Georgia State. Clay Helton is their head coach, formerly of USC, took USC to the Rose Bowl in, I believe, 2016. He's 3-3. This is his first season at Georgia Southern, 49-27 overall as a head coach. This team is transitioning from triple option to just a typical regular Clay Helton style offense. So a big switch, lots of transfers in there. They lost their QB from last season, Justin Tomlin, their leading rusher from last year, Logan Wright, but they've replaced it with Kyle Van Treese, a 6-year transfer from Buffalo, who holds the record for most passing yards in a season already with 1,933. They swing it around the field, but it's also just hilarious that he already holds that. It's 6 games into the season. But yeah, interception prone, 13 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. This is a team that offensively isn't bad, but defensively is one of the worst in the country. According to EPA, expected points added, they have their EPA on defense is 16.44 per game, which is 128th in the nation. Friendly reminder, there's 131 teams that qualify for EPA, so they're not good. They're 83rd overall, though, in EPA, 9.08 per game on offense, which is 20th in the country. They also boast Ezra Archie.
That is very true. I think this one reminds me a lot of last week, where it's like I like the head coach in Clay Helton. I liked Butch Jones at Arkansas State. The offense is like pretty solid. I like the quarterback, and the defense just is a huge issue. Like they're one of the worst defenses in the country. You look at ESPN's efficiency metrics, Arkansas State 122, Georgia Southern 123. So they're a little better offensively than Arkansas State. They're 46th in efficiency. Arkansas State 62nd. So it's a good offense, bad defense. Kind of feels like a really tough combo to beat a JMU team that's pretty darn complete.
Also worth noting, they score 2.81 points per drive, which I think is in the top 30. Their defense allows 3.02. So their defense is essentially allowing a field goal a drive, which with this JMU offense will probably result in some big-time points scored. So it's going to be an interesting game to watch for sure. Friendly reminder, they did knock off Nebraska back in week 2 of the season. But that was a 45-42 just slugfest. It was a big reason Scott Frost got fired. Some argue the inciting incident.
Absolutely.
Okay, what does JMU need to do to win this game?
It's a good question. I think they just need to not make a bunch of errors. If they win the turnover margin against a team that's like really turnover prone, I think they'll be fine. They should move the ball well. Right? Really the only times they've struggled this year is Texas State, some drive stall because they had some turnover problems. And then App State, when they got in the huge hole, is because they were just putting the ball on the ground seemingly every possession. So if they don't shoot themselves in the foot, I think they have a pretty good chance because they should score a lot of points in this game. And I think the defense is good enough that I was thinking about this earlier. I think I was listening to a Sunbelt podcast, and they were talking about how they were interested to see how JMU handles an offensive attack versus more of a rushing attack. And
like a passing attack?
Yeah. So like an air, sorry, a passing, not offensive. A team that throws it a lot or a team that runs it a lot. I don't think either of them are great against JMU. Like they can stop the run, but if you're going to go back and throw it a lot, they have a pass rush that is so dangerous that, yeah, you're probably going to hit some chunk plays, but I think they have the defensive line that's going to make some plays and force some issues because they've been one of the best teams in the Sun Belt in terms of generating sacks. So I don't really think there is any great way to attack the JMU defense.
I agree. I think this defensive line, if they know they're going to pass it, will just tee off on that. And like you said, they'll probably hit a chunk play here and there, maybe evade a sack and get out of the pocket and throw it deep. And there'll probably be a guy open. But I think the defensive line, if they're going to throw it, 75% of the time, the defensive line's going to get back there. They're going to hit Van Treese, and he's going to have a bad time back there. Also, JMU has an 81% chance of winning this game. Projected points 35-23.
Over under 67. I like the over.
I agree. I like the over in this one. Last season, Georgia Southern went 3-9, so they've already matched their win total from last year. Against the spread, though, they were 6-6, but not a good team overall. Like just from an efficiency standpoint, their defense brings them down so much. And I think JMU's offense, I think Georgia Southern's going to have to score on every drive to win this game.
Basically,
and I don't think that's an exaggeration to say. And I don't see them scoring on every drive.
I mean, I think JMU legitimately, they scored 42 against Arkansas State and they didn't score in the first quarter.
Yeah.
Right? I think they could score 50 in this game and it wouldn't be like much of a surprise. I think they should. I think their offense is good enough to go out and score 50, right? You're looking at a team that scored 44 against Middle Tennessee. They had 40 against Texas State with a pick six in there, but I think it's doable to go score 50 as a team. So then if you give up 28, it doesn't really matter as much.
Yeah, I think they might give up some points, but I think at the end of the day, they'll win by 2.5, 3 possessions. I think JMU minus 10.5, which I think is what the spread is right now, is a awesome bet.
Yep. I like that as well. And it kind of feels like Arkansas State a little bit too, where I think in a year or two, maybe Butch Jones has that Arkansas State turnaround a little farther forward. And the same with Georgia Southern. I think in 2 years, Clay Helton will probably have more of his guys in there in terms of what he wants for running his offense and things like that, and maybe some defensive guys that fit more of what they're doing. But it's a team that JMU feels like they're ready to go out and win these games and win the Sun Belt. So you just gotta sort of avoid those huge mistakes.
It's also a very interesting kind of breakdown for this game where you brought up the fact that this is a team that wants to drop back and pass it more than they're going to run it. Yet when they rush the ball, they average 5.3 yards per attempt, and they're the 6th most efficient rushing attack in the country. And yet you're not wrong. They do want to drop back and pass it more. And when they pass it, they're the 58th most efficient team in the nation and average 6.81 yards per completion. So they're almost more efficient running it than they are passing it, but they're going to try and pass it. According to EPA, JMU's 10th in the nation defending against the pass and 1st in the nation defending against the run.
I wonder if that's almost not quite the same, but almost like when a triple option team throws it, where there's an element of surprise. Yeah. I bet they've got numbers in the box and then they use it well. But those that's the best kind of air raid, right? Is when you can sling it a lot and then you also break off. I know some of those Texas Tech offenses in the past were deadly when they had guys throwing it 60 times a game and you'd still have a running back you could hand it to and it'd get you 12 yards. It's what are you supposed to do defensively? So there's some stuff they do offensively that's going to be a fun test.
And JMU's going to get tested on third down.
Mm-hmm.
Georgia Southern's one of the best teams in third down and fourth down success rate. 57% conversion rate on third down, 54% on fourth down, which is sixth best in the country. And JMU hasn't really faced a lot of opportunities. And against Arkansas State, getting off the field on third down was tough. There were a couple all their big plays they allowed were on third and longs.
I think outside of App State, I would say this is the toughest test to date. Like I think they're better than Middle,
Yeah,
in Arkansas State. So I think there's a test here, even though I still think JMU's probably the better team.
for sure. Do you want to break down some questions?
Yeah.
All right. First one for you from Bubba Fisk at Bubba_Fisk on Twitter. Major hypothetical. If the 12, you got to love hypotheticals that start immediately with if. If the 12-team playoff already existed and JMU was allowed to compete in the postseason, do you guys believe the Dukes make the playoffs?
That is a good question. So they're currently behind Cincinnati in the rankings, but Cincinnati's got it would be close between those two. I would say
this is mostly. Do you think JMU wins out? Because if JMU wins
they
out,
go, they win out. They're probably the team unless Cincinnati wins out. But I would say, yeah, why not? Why not? Yeah. I think there would be actually a very legitimate chance because I think they have a chance to be favored in every game that they would be the team. Also, if they were like eligible for things and had a chance to play a 12th game, which would add to the resume, and then a Sun Belt title game, you could really boost the resume through those.
Yeah, but unfortunately, that's not happening. So, what are the potential pitfalls against Georgia Southern? I think we touched on it a little bit. I would say the secondary and a slow start are the major pitfalls. If JMU gets into like a 10-0 hole, a 17-0 hole, and has to dig themselves out of that, that'll be tough. And if the defensive line can't generate any pressure and Van Treese is able to sit back there and pick apart this defense, I think they have 3 receivers over 25 catches, 2 over 35 receptions on the season, in Derwin Burgess and Caleb Hood. They might be able to put up some yards and take advantage of this Duke's defense.
Yeah, I think that's got to be the major pitfall. Is sort of like a shootout where JMU's defense doesn't get as many stops as we think they will, and it becomes like a really, really tight shootout. Or like you're saying, yeah, they fall down early and then they have to, score 2 or 3 times in a row just to like tie the game or get within a possession, something like that would obviously be tough. We haven't seen this team trail 28-3 and bring it back yet. And we'll need to see that. Oh, wait. No, but I think that's obviously that would be a tough spot if they're down by a lot. And yeah, it's basically if the secondary isn't able to get like consistent stops and Georgia Southern can score 45.
Yeah, I will be real because Clay Helton's not a bad coach. Like he understands that this team's good, that JMU's defense is good. And Caleb Hood's a slot guy, shifty. I think he's 5'8". I would not be surprised if we see a lot of quick, like passing plays.
Yeah,
that are designed like almost like a run play, but get it to the outside and get it to the hands of your playmakers. Wouldn't be surprised if Clay Helton draws up stuff like that to really take advantage of this JMU defense and get it out of his Van Treese's hands quickly so the defensive line doesn't even have a chance to get to him. And if they're able to complete those and they result in chunks, it might be a long day for JMU.
I would agree.
Next question, where's Kaylon Black? We don't know.
Ask somebody else.
We'll direct you to the beat writers. I think he's injured and he's currently playing as an in case of emergency break here type of position. So if nothing happens with Latrell and Percy, I doubt we'll see Kaylon much this weekend either. JMU goes undefeated. How high could they peak in the AP rankings? That's from Poopy Button Swag. Shout out Dragon D1339 for answering that question. 9 probably. Don't know where he got 9, but 9 probably.
I like that answer for him.
What do you think?
I honestly don't think they would get into the top 10. I would say like 12.
Yeah, I was gonna say 11. So right there with each other. I just don't see them. Them having less games than everyone else hurts. And
it hurts, and the fact that like in fairness, their schedule is pretty soft. Like compared to the rest of the nation. Like I still think they should be ranked because their strength of record is so good. Their scoring margin is crazy. Like they've been super efficient. But I don't know that there's like a top 10 strength of schedule there. And I think voters are going to have a really hard time saying, oh yeah, I think they could beat, Ole Miss, or I think they would beat Penn State on a neutral, because there are voters that just ask themselves as they do it. oh, they couldn't beat them. They couldn't beat them. So given how little they're known at the FBS ranks, I think it'll take some time for them to get like a top 10 ranking.
Love it. And it's time, as always, for everyone's favorite segment, Sunbelt Pickup. All right. Last week, you were on Georgia Southern. No, you were on Georgia State. I was on Georgia Southern. You got the win.
We're already missing one this week because there's a Wednesday night game currently in action.
It's happening right now. Marshall just went up 7-3 on the Cajuns, the Raging Cajuns. All right. We both were on app. Troy Southern Miss. Who won that game?
We got to talk about that app game really quick. They lost to Texas State. What the hell?
Oh, yeah, that's right. We both were on app and they lost. I forgot about that game.
What are they doing? They suck.
Yeah, they're not very good. They're 3-3 now and 1-2 in Sunbelt play.
What a joke of a program, right?
I was on Troy. You were on Southern Miss. Your boys couldn't muster more than 10 points. A damn shame from the Frank Gore Jr. Fighting Blackhawks or whatever they're called.
My boys are not going to win the Sunbelt West.
Yeah, I know. Coastal barely eked out a win over ULM.
We nailed that pick. We said we would pick Coastal to win and ULM to cover. It happened. Hopefully you bet your mortgage on it, folks. As we highly recommend.
Yeah, we recommend that.
Bet online, you want to just put your mortgage.
You're really good at predicting scores.
I know, I've been hot. And then I looked at the JMU sports blog guys, and they've been like just as good, if not better, the last 3 weeks. And I hadn't looked before, and I was like, oh, wow. Maybe I'm not as good as I thought.
And we both were 3-2 last week. So I think you have a 2-game lead on me now.
That's huge.
All right, week 7. Louisiana and Marshall are already playing, so that game won't be added to this.
Won't be added to it. I would have picked Marshall.
So
they're up 7. They're up 7. We'll count it for ourselves.
Yeah, okay. Number 25. No, we always save that for last. I don't know why I always want to do it first. ODU Coastal.
This one, I really wanted to pick ODU. They're coming off a bye. They're fiery, which I love. And Coastal's not been impressive. I don't know. I think Coastal's offense is probably too good. So I'll say Coastal wins.
I don't have any faith in ODU's offense, like at all.
Yeah.
And it's also, if this was at home, maybe I'd be able to go ODU.
Right.
But Coastal's favored by 12.5.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going Coastal. Texas State at Troy. Troy, 16-point favorites. But if we're talking the transitive property, Texas State has already beat Troy.
They don't even need to show up. Just submit that to the conference office, and I'll give it to you. I like Troy here. Troy. I feel like it's going to be a Troy, South Alabama race for the West title.
I agree. Troy 2-1 in Sunbelt. But like, if Texas State wins this game, all of a sudden Texas State leapfrogs all the way up, and they're in the running for the West.
That's crazy, yeah.
But yeah, I'm also on Troy. 16-point home favorites. Yeah. NFL Network game this week. ULM against USA.
South Alabama is really good.
Yeah, I've been saying.
4-1 with their 1-point loss to an undefeated UCLA. They should be like near the top 25. But I'll say South Alabama. I think they're actually pretty good.
I'm saying South Alabama as well. They're 17-point home favorites. Arkansas State, Southern Miss. Who do you got?
Southern Miss is going to win this one. They're going to get back on track. They're going to go on a little bit of a push here and really threaten. I think the November 19th home game against South Alabama could very well determine the West.
Unfortunately, I'm on Southern Miss as well. I just have no faith in Arkansas
Unfortunately.
State. Well, I wanted to pick one different from you on this.
This
week. We're all the same.
That's tough.
JMU, really Georgia Southern. Who do you got? Oh, the line's up to -12.
Yeah, she's growing. I think JMU wins. I think they're going to score 50-plus points. They might cover the over-under on their own with a 69. I could see that happening. I just think they're better than them. I think they're unbeatable. I think they're the best team, not in the state, but in the country. And I think if the College Football Playoff Committee had any balls, they'd put them in.
What's your score prediction?
I had to pull it up to make sure I didn't get it wrong. Put it in the newsletter. I said 45-27.
Okay, I like that. Even though you just said I think they go over 50 points, and here you are going under
Yeah,
50
so I didn't
points.
in that one, so who knows? But I do think it'll go over the total. Which did I even go over? Is my math even right? Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
That's like
yeah,
72, right?
yeah.
Like
I like it. I'm gonna go JMU 55.
Ooh.
Georgia Southern 35.
55, so 2 field goals. Or a
or
missed extra point.
or a missed extra point.
Interesting.
No, I like.
What if they hit 12 field goals? Just to get Wise back on track.
With that music getting cut off because you said that. Anything else you have to add?
No.
Okay.
Women's soccer is playing well.
They are.
Field hockey, 17th in the country. Men's soccer not as good. I think Byington spoke to the media today. I looked at KenPom. KenPom numbers are not updated, but I looked at it for the first time in a while, and I am excited for college basketball season.
I mean, Jamie's going to win the national championship there too.
I wouldn't be surprised if we won it in men's and women's, softball and baseball and lacrosse, and then football got away.
Probably not baseball. Probably not baseball.
Whatever. I think they could.
Okay. Well, for Ben and Conlon, my name's Jack Fitzpatrick. You all have a wonderful rest of your day. See ya.